Good day, y'all. Welcome to Cannabis Chronicles. My name is Kimberly Cato, and I am the founder and executive director of True's Counseling Services, where we are transforming trauma into triumph. Today, we're going to be having a discussion with a wonderful lady, a wonderful friend that I've met on LinkedIn. Her name is Anne-Marie Fischer, and she has a master's of education, and she's a cannabis and CBD industry journalist. She's an editor and involved with the education around cannabis. And she's come to us today to answer questions and curiosity based on my inquiry. Let me just tell you a little bit about why Cannabis Chronicles has actually come to be. We started really out of my own curiosity about what was happening in this industry. In December 2018, I first discovered that CBD oil could be used for people like me who were experiencing chronic pain. Up until this point, I only knew of cannabis and CBD oil being used for children and those horrific stories of people, of young children who had been having seizures and these things for years. And the remedy that they discovered was CBD oil. I only thought that CBD oil was only being used for them. I didn't realize, and in looking into it, I dug deeper and deeper and discovered that there are multitudes of uses for cannabis and CBD oil, for chronic pain, for cancer, for all manner of things. And that was so not a part of my understanding. So Cannabis Chronicles, for me, is my way of exploring the multifaceted options and multifaceted uses of cannabis. And whether it's for people like me who have experienced chronic pain, or people who are using it recreationally, and everyone in between, I'm curious. And I thought, if I'm curious, there must be others who are curious as well. So I started this Chronicles, Cannabis Chronicles, to investigate that curiosity, to seek clarity, to understand the industry as a whole, and to speak of the clarity of thought and the freedom that I now have as a result of delving into this world of CBD oil and cannabis use. It's really, truly changed my life and my healing. And so that's what this is born out of. Now, Anne-Marie comes to this table from a different perspective, and she'll share the details of her involvement. So get ready, because she'll be coming any minute. And I'm excited. I'm really excited. Mm-hmm. Hi there.
Hello, how are you?
I am well. How are you?
Good, good, nice to see you.
It worked.
It worked. It took me a second to get there, but I got here.
Right on, right on. How are you? You're good.
Good, yeah. It's a nice Friday, and I'm nice and relaxed and ready to go. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm nice and relaxed. I'm ready to go. It looks really bright and sunny. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay. Is my background okay?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Okay, yeah, good.
It's beautiful. So I already introduced, indicating that this is Cannabis Chronicles. I'm looking here because clearly my screen is here,
Yeah,
but I'd rather be talking to you.
of course, of course.
um, so this is Cannabis Chronicles, and Anne-Marie, I welcome you to Cannabis Chronicles, and I'm excited to hear a little bit about who you are and what brings you to the table.
Great, thank you. Well, I can certainly introduce myself. So my name's Anne-Marie Fischer. Professionally, I own a company called Cannabis. It's a women-led cannabis content and writing and education agency that seeks to work with all sorts of Canadian and US brands, licensed producers and publications to spread accurate, engaging, and important information on cannabis in this era of legalization. I myself, I'm a 18-year user, so I've used for well over half my life. Through that time, I've had an absolute love affair with cannabis, and with any love affair, there's the highs and lows. Yeah, so certainly it's had its place in my life. Certainly it's had times where it's hindered times of my life. But overall, it's supported me through a lot of wonderful things. I've had a very successful career. I've gotten 2 degrees and a diploma, all on cannabis. And I feel like it's really been a support to me through life and through my professional and development. So.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
When you say 18 years ago, what was happening in your life 18 years ago that
Yeah.
brought you to cannabis?
For sure. So it was a very different time. So this is the early 2000s. I was in university at the time. I had actually found out that my older sisters, had been long-term cannabis users. So when I kind of, got into it with my friends, I had found that my sisters had been indulging in it as well. So that kind of gave a little bit of a safety net for me because I was able to experiment with cannabis in a very safe environment with people I trusted very much. So having my sisters there, it was, it was something that bonded us. I'm quite a bit younger than them. So when I became an adult, we would, have a joint together and laugh and have all the lovely experiences of cannabis. That being said, it was a very different time. We didn't know about cannabis, what we know now. So like in the last, 19, 18 years since I've been consuming, my knowledge has changed quite a bit, and it's definitely affected my consumption as well. So, yeah.
How has your knowledge changed? What changed and what? When you say that cannabis is different than it was 18 years ago, I concur.
Yeah.
How is it that you note this change?
I think becoming aware of both what's in our bodies that receives cannabis. So being aware of our endocannabinoid system and the fact that all mammals and humans have an endocannabinoid system, and that system really sets us up to benefit from cannabis. So I didn't know we had the endocannabinoid system. When I found out about it, I was absolutely blown away, and it's still something that a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah.
So it was learning about that beautiful system I have within my body, but then also understanding that cannabis has cannabinoids that work with the endocannabinoid system in my body, and introducing cannabinoids in an intentional, educational way where I'm very, very careful about what the cannabinoids I'm choosing, the strains I'm choosing. It's really changed my relationship with cannabis. I do use quite a bit. I always say I'm fueled by THC, which is, something that a lot of people in the industry say. And, but every time I do consume, it's more intentional. It's more, I know what I'm smoking. I know the strain that I've chosen for myself. I understand the terpenes that are involved. I understand a lot more about the plants. So it's really, really altered my experience.
Okay. So when you first started 18 years ago, you were using it primarily recreationally?
100% recreationally, because back then I didn't know that it could be used medicinally. And
Exactly.
A lot of the times I did in my youth, I did prefer cannabis to alcohol. And that was my drug of choice, if you want to call it that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just liked the effects better, and it didn't give me a hangover.
Yeah.
And it was because I came to learn that I was ingesting beautiful things for my body that were all along benefiting me, and I think building me as a healthy woman throughout my use. So it was recreational, but I've certainly changed to medicinal.
Right.
And
So
recognize that
it started out recreationally, but it had medicinal properties and benefits that you weren't aware of at the time. Excellent. Can you tell me, I've got a number of questions.
Please lay them all on me. Yeah, I'm excited. I can talk cannabis all day.
I'll try to lay them out systematically.
Sure.
I think we'll start with I wanted to learn more about cannabis, but I think before we go there, can we talk a little bit about the cannabinoid system you referred to, and sort of bring light to what that is for those who would not necessarily know?
For sure. So the endocannabinoid system, as I said before, it exists in all mammals and humans. It's what we would call maybe a master conductor of all our body systems. So really what it is, it's a network of beautiful receptors and pathways that really go from our cannabinoid receptors. We've got two main cannabinoid receptors in our bodies, CB1 and CB2. And depending on the way you ingest cannabis, it affects those cannabinoid systems. And as I said, acts as a master conductor, bringing those cannabinoids to our body where they most need them. So it's a beautiful system. Within the endocannabinoid system, we actually have cannabinoids. So those are called endocannabinoids. So we're already naturally producing these cannabinoids that cannabis also produces as well. So it's a really, sometimes they refer to it as a lock and a key, kind of, yes. And it's a really beautiful analogy because, cannabis really is an intelligent plant in that it knows where it needs to go. And your endocannabinoid system is the vehicle for that.
And so the benefits of connecting this lock and key, can you talk a little bit about how it regulates our systems, or, because from my understanding, it's connected also to our nervous system.
Yep.
And so our moods and emotions and general functioning is regulated by the by the nervous system that is actually benefited from the lock and key fits that you're talking about. Is that correct?
That's exactly it. You explained it. You explained it very beautifully. Oh man, I don't even know if I can add to that because you did really explain it so beautifully.
Okay.
It really is a lock and key. And, our endocannabinoid system does lead to homeostasis within our body. So that sense of balance. And as you said, it does connect to all our systems. So our nervous system, our respiratory system, our lymphatic system, all the systems in the body. And that's a beautiful thing about it. So the cannabinoids, as I said, they go to where they need to go. So whether you're looking to use cannabinoids for appetite, mood, sleep, a lot of people are using them for anxiety, pain. There's so many applications for THC, CBD, and other cannabinoids. So.
Yeah. And so it's kind of a two-parter for me, this question. So for those who are living with chronic pain, and for those who have a mental health issue,
sure,
would cannabis benefit them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And a lot of that comes down to understanding the nuances of mental health and cannabis. Across the board, I would say THC, the cannabinoid THC, the psychoactive cannabinoid, 100% does support I don't say treat, I never say treat, but it does support management of pain. It's, I think that's one of the widest uses, and that's one of the widest most understood uses of cannabis.
Okay.
However, if you are dealing with a mental health issue, this is where THC is a little bit of a tricky beast for mental health. And this is where maybe CBD might be a little bit of a better or more preferable cannabinoid, because CBD in itself, it's non-psychoactive,
Yeah.
and it does work to regulate pain as well, while it's regulating mood. So it's not to say that people that live with mental health issues should avoid THC, because I live with mental health issues. As I described to you, I'm a mental health survivor. And THC has been a part of my recovery. It's been a part of me. However, when you do deal with mental health issues, depression, high anxiety, using high THC products could exacerbate those symptoms.
Yeah.
So this is where it's really good to maybe look into a measured dose, or sorry, an equal ratio of THC to CBD.
Okay.
CBD can increase the efficacy of THC, while the CBD can also, while it also kind of mitigates that psychoactive effect as well. So
Okay.
THC and CBD have a very reciprocal and interesting relationship with each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
CBD and THC are the most talked about components of the cannabinoid system, but there are multitudes of others, are there not? Are you aware of
Absolutely.
that?
So the last count I heard, there's 138 known cannabinoids in the cannabis plant. So that's the last number I heard, and I know that there's more being discovered all the time. One talk that I attended last year referred to THC and CBD as the boring cannabinoids. So I think we're really just on the brink of discovery what other cannabinoids can do, and the cannabis industry is really starting to catch on to that. So THC and CBD are just the start, and I think CBD opened the dialogue more to people, and warmed people up to cannabis, that will allow us to explore these new cannabinoids as well.
Right. So you've mentioned you're a mental health survivor.
Sure.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I've been high anxiety all my life, and I've also had, I don't really like to align with a particular diagnosis, because I think mental health is a very big spectrum.
Yeah.
So like there's certain aspects of mental illness that I fit into, certain diagnoses that I fit into, and stuff like that. But I would say anxiety 100% has been the common thread throughout my mental health issues, for sure. From when I was a child, and I would have these irrational fears of things, and never want to go out of my comfort zone. Although at the same time, I'm a very curious and very adventurous person. So I was always kind of fighting that dichotomy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did find introducing THC and CBD, whether it was me knowing it back in the day, did kind of help me calm those the wheels turning in my head. To me, I always say that especially THC, helps line everything up for me. So there could be a multitude of things going on in my brain, but when I ingest cannabis, it all just kind of settles and then sorts itself out, sort of. So it's really helped me slow down. Now, I say that with caution, because there's been times that I've over ingested. And there are certain studies that do suggest that THC overconsumption can exacerbate mental health issues, and I very much agree with that. I also believe that young people should be very careful about using THC before the age of 25, because our brains are so susceptible.
Yeah.
And I think, when I think back, I think I might have done a little bit of undue damage to my brain when I was younger, not knowing. So I always, I've got nieces and nephews around 18, 19, and I just always say, just wait. And they're not really interested, which is good, but Yeah, it's just something that, I think it's too much to introduce into a young brain
Mhm.
while it's still developing, especially with the struggles of being young these days. So
Mhm. And that's one of my things as well. Under 25 is currently the going age to really talk about like abstaining from using cannabis, because the mind is so is not yet developed. It's
absolutely.
so easily reconstructed,
Hmm.
and there's great danger in venturing into the use prior to
Absolutely.
the
Absolutely.
development of the brain. Um, what hmm, when you talk about ingesting, what what are the different forms of ingesting, and what have you experienced or utilized, and why?
Sure, absolutely. I'll be completely honest. I'm an old school flower girl, so I like to I like to smoke flower. So that's my preferred method of ingestion. That being said, being within the cannabis industry for quite a while, I've been able to see how the methods of ingestion and consumption have changed. And whew, wow, it's quite something, from tinctures to edibles to capsules to sublingual sprays to everything. There's topicals, putting it on our skin. There's so many ways that we can utilize cannabis now. As we know, we're going to legalization 2.0, so
Yeah.
our experience is going to be opened a bit as Canadians, which is wonderful.
Mhm.
So we can experience the other types of consumption. So
Yeah. So, and when you say 2.0, I understand October 19th is the date when we'll be legalizing edibles. Is that correct?
correct, yes, yes. So yeah, so they call it like kind of the second legalization, or yeah, the new legalization. So we'll be seeing edibles, topicals. I think we'll be getting vaporizers and stuff like that. So
Okay.
we'll be getting a lot more things. It's interesting though, like critics from within aren't totally excited about our edibles, especially because they're very, 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 very conservative in their dosing. Um, but we have to start somewhere, and it's
Yeah.
starting at a very safe point. So it's up to the consumer to understand what's right for them, and to do their education, do their learning, and be educated. So.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about Cannerite?
Absolutely. So Tannerite came into my head about 2.5 or 3 years ago. I was living the laptop lifestyle with my partner at the time. We were living in Costa Rica, so I was writing for a living. Prior to that, I worked, basically lived in higher education for a decade. So my previous work is in research, education, community engagement, community education, public education, and then all of the wonderful nuances within each discipline. So I have a very well-rounded professional background that kind of paved the way really well to being a cannabis writer. So I was doing freelance writing, found that I was getting a few requests for writing from cannabis clinics or cannabis brands, and knew that what the content that they were putting out wasn't really cutting it as far as what we needed to know. It was a big learning curve for myself. I learned if I wanted to step into the cannabis space, I was going to have to be an expert. So one day I said to my partner, I'm going to be a cannabis writer. And we didn't necessarily know what a cannabis writer was at that time, but I was determined to be one. So from that moment on, I dedicated myself 100% of my career and my efforts to the cannabis space. I created all my social media and my website, and then really started to get some amazing connections within, particularly the U.S., because at the time the U.S. states were legalizing and Canada was just still medical.
Yeah.
Um, so I got to experience legalization of the state of California, which was beautiful. I got to experience an already established state in Colorado by working in there, and then the various states that were slowly legalizing. So I got a very well-rounded view of what cannabis legalization was. And then I ended up moving back home from Costa Rica, and just serendipitously at the time that we were legalizing. So it couldn't have been more perfect. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I helped Canada usher in legalization with good content, and now I serve. I've served probably over 200 brands and clients over my time. It's been absolutely wonderful. The cannabis industry is, oh, I just can't even say so many good things about it. It's been such an energizing and beautiful community to be a part of. So
Excellent. Excellent.
yeah.
And so home, when you say you moved back home, where is home for you?
Home is Ontario. However, I had intentionally kind of decided that Ontario wasn't for me. So that's why I moved down to Costa Rica for a little while, lived the beachy life for a couple of years, and then decided that I really did want to be back in Canada. However, Ontario wasn't for me. So I came back to Ontario for a little bit and then moved out to Vancouver Island, British Columbia. So that's where I am right now.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm from Sarnia, Ontario.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just down the road.
Too.
Yeah.
So from my understanding and experience anyways thus far, I've just sort of stepped into the cannabis world and environment as of December of 2018.
Okay.
But what I've discovered thus far is that BC seems to be really rich in experiments and understanding and research and exploration of cannabis, far more so than I experienced here in Ontario.
Absolutely.
Has that been your experience as well?
Absolutely. So it's been really interesting. I actually moved here on legalization day. And at that point, British Columbia was still very gray market. So when I say that, like, still very much gray market, I mean that there's literally was a dispensary every few blocks. And these were gray market dispensaries, so not legal dispensaries. So things you wouldn't have seen in Ontario, things I never saw in Ontario. Maybe see the odd one pop up to only get closed down, but in here in BC, the gray market was allowed to thrive for quite some time. Now that was very short-lived, though, my experience of wonderland of BC cannabis, because all the shops were had to close down because of legalization,
right?
And they were either get a license or kind of get out of the game. So so it's been interesting for British Columbia. It's half gone more legal and it's half gone more gray market,
right?
Because not everybody can afford a license, and a lot of people are just so passionate about bringing the plant to people that they'll do whatever they need to do to do that. So so it's a little bit of a divide culturally. And I support both sides. I do believe in medicating and doing what you need to do, and I believe in growing and sharing medicine and all that stuff, but I really do ethically believe in the principles of legalization and sourcing legal cannabis when you can.
So what do you understand about the licensing and these sort of things? What is your experience?
You have a week? No. Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah. So licensing's been really frustrating for everybody.
Okay.
It's very okay. Okay. There's two ways about it. So it's been very frustrating for the average person who's just so people who have had dispensaries, who have been medicating people for a very long time, or sharing cannabis for a very long time. These are the people who are just kind of humble people, not made of millions. They don't necessarily have the hundreds of thousands of dollars required to purchase a retail license, and go through the zoning process and go through the buying capital for a legal business. So so yeah, on the same card, there's a lot of wonderful licensed producers and collectives, I guess you'd call them, who are banding together to help micro cultivators, retailers, and other people get into the licensing game. Whether it's helping them financially or helping them through the licensing process. there's a lot of people helping, a lot of good people helping a lot of good people out. So
Yeah.
it kind of goes both ways.
So they formed collectives then to enable people who wouldn't independently be able to access the licensing to become a part of the collective so that they can.
Absolutely. So what a good example is one of our licensed producers out here in British Columbia called Pasha Brands.
Yeah.
And they're a licensed producer. One of their brands is called BC Craft Supply. And yesterday it was just announced that they've just signed 100 microcultivators cultivators onto their to the brand. So this will allow these microcultivators to grow, access, you know, the capital and the infrastructure for good facilities, and bring their product to the legal market. So this stuff gives me goosebumps. Like, this is the stuff that I really love about the legal market is that really good people stepping in to help the you know, the passionate people who've been growing for decades and really grow really good pot. And so yeah.
And ultimately it's about being able to get I'm trying to look for the word, helping people get qualified or products without without having to do it illegally. So the same people that were being helped in the community will continue to be able to get the same supply then out of this collective then being formed.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. I was at a cannabis conference this past weekend, and the chairman of Pasha Brands, Patrick Brockman, said, you know, the plant, Mother Nature gave us this plant, and it's our obligation to share it. So that's what they're doing within this legal framework, and it's absolutely beautiful to see this plant being shared legally. You know, legalization is not perfect, but we're getting there, and we're doing what we can to bring good people into the legal market and provide the people of Canada the best product that we absolutely can. So. Exactly.
That's actually quite comforting, because my experience thus far has been the everyday man being cut out of this equation as legalization has gone forward, and that just seems ridiculously unfair, and not just to those who are producing, but primarily to those who were receiving. Or they're no longer able to access things the way they did before.
That's right.
And, you know, that just seemed really unfair to me, and so it pleases me to learn about these collectives.
You're so right. And like, you know, like, as I said, legalization has certainly not been perfect. It's been painful for a lot of people, especially medical users, who have had to face, you know, product shortages and heavy taxation and excise tax and stuff like that. You know, they had these privileges before, and then as soon as October 17th hit, it changed the game for them, and it really upset a lot of people, and rightfully so. I actually gave up my medical license willingly, because I just wasn't feeling that being a medical patient was really serving me anymore. And, you know, so, you know, I just, you know, not that I don't believe in it, I just wasn't my thing anymore. And, I realized that I can access good product from the legal market and the gray market as well. And, but it was really hard to see the hardships that people were going through, and the money issues and the accessibility issues. But I think we're getting there and fixing things.
And so, like I say, I've only come into knowledge of the cannabis industry as of December 2018, and got my license, my medical license, I think it was maybe February or March. And got my first dose of CBD oil in March of 2019. And it was, well, the first time, it wasn't good. The second time, it was phenomenal. And really, really, like, almost instantly found relief in the pain. I have arthritis in my knees. And so almost immediately I found relief of that pain in my knees, such that I was able, at that point I was walking with a walker. And I was able to, within a very short period of time, move from the walker to my cane. But when I went to get that same product, again, I've never been able to find it since. And I thought, like, what is this? You give me this medicine, I get remarkable results, and then suddenly it's no longer available. And I've not found anything that is comparable to that since, with the exception of somebody that I know who'd been using cannabis for their cancer treatments for about 15 years. And he was making his own oils based on his experience, and he gave me some of his, and his worked wonders as well. But again, it's not going through, not that it's illegal, but certainly not going through the medical license process.
Absolutely, and it's not tested, and it's not, you don't necessarily know what cannabinoids and terpenes are in there, or the percentages and all that. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's a really frustrating to hear. And you know, to that, for anybody, I would recommend to just when you do find a strain or a product that you enjoy or find that works, look at those percentages and all the terpenes and whatever else they're bringing into the product, because you know, it's really you would want to try to replicate whatever profile you saw in that, in the other strains or products that you're choosing, for sure. But that's really too bad to hear. It's frustrating.
You see, and that's a piece of frustration for me, because I didn't understand terpenes or percentages or anything at the time when I first discovered something that worked. So I never recorded that.
Sure.
And so I don't even remember what the name of the substance was.
Yeah.
And so it's really about learning the terpenes and the percentages and all that. Can you speak to that for a little bit?
Absolutely, yeah. So terpenes are almost as important as cannabinoids, and more we're seeing licensed producers come out with full terpene and cannabinoid profiles on their products. So terpenes give cannabis their aroma and the taste. So when you smell cannabis, when you take that whiff, that's the terpenes that you're smelling. When you light it up or consume it, that's the terpenes that you're tasting. So terpenes aren't only for smell and aroma, but they also have other effects. So there's hundreds of terpenes that we see, and they belong in common foods and everything. So limonene, pinene, humulene. Oh gosh, I wish I had my terpene list here, but I don't. But there's hundreds of beautiful terpenes, and about 10 or 15 that have really been highlighted within the cannabis community as beneficial to consumption. So terpenes and cannabinoids work together in what's called the entourage effect, where terpenes and cannabinoids are more effective working together than if they were working separately.
Okay.
They work in harmony. So your cannabis experience is much more than the THC percentage or the CBD percentage. It's what terpenes are also in that strain.
And that's interesting, because not knowing that that they work as a group, or knowing now even that they work as a group, makes it easier for me when I'm looking at what I'm going to purchase. Because when I say that first thing that the first CBD oil that I purchased, one of the reasons I believe it didn't work, aside from the fact that it was just not pure, is that it was specifically CBD and only. And they prided themselves on the fact that it was just CBD oil. But it was really in discussion with that friend of mine I told you, who had been using CBD and cannabis for 15 years in the treatment of his cancer.
Mhm.
He was one who explained, you know what, you need to have a more robust collection of the CBD oil, the THC, and other things. And that's what led me to choose the next oil that I did get from
Okay.
the license. And so
Interesting.
that license, I do know that that product was not specifically and only CBD oil, but it had, what did they call, a full spectrum.
Spectrum, yeah.
Um, and so I know at least that much. And moving forward, I only purchase and investigate further those things that do come as a full spectrum.
Good.
But then it's really getting down to which terpenes work specifically for me and my current situation.
100%. And, I wish I could talk about all the terpenes and what they do, but when you actually do go look into terpene science, it's absolutely fascinating. And just, even what the power of smell and taste can do for us as well.
Right.
And, terpenes are really important too. And if you ever do get the opportunity to smell your cannabis before you try it,
Yeah.
the way it pleases your nose is a really good indicator of how you will enjoy it.
Okay.
So I know that there's certain strains that I just can't get behind as far as the smell, and
Okay.
and then I know that it's just not going to work with my physiology. So I'll just follow my nose, really. And
yeah.
it's really fascinating when you get into it.
So maybe we will have another opportunity to talk, and you can go into more depth about the terpenes specifically.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll come prepared for that discussion.
I love that.
I think for now, I really do appreciate the sort of full rounded discussion we've had thus far. Is there anything else that you'd want to share in this introductory discussion with you, Miss Anne-Marie? Given the fact that you are such a wealth of knowledge, I would very much appreciate being able to have additional conversations where we could go more in depth.
Absolutely, yeah. I certainly consider myself a generalist about cannabis, so I can talk about a lot of the aspects, not only about the cannabis plant, but the social aspects about cannabis.
Okay.
The role of women and people of color in our industry,
Yes.
the role of veterans and how cannabis has changed the lives of veterans in the U.S. and Canada. The aging population. There's so many wonderful, how cannabis taxes are being used, how cannabis social responsibility, corporate social responsibility is changing the world. Like, there's so many things that beyond just the cannabis plant itself and how it affects our bodies that cannabis should be talked about. Like, there's just so many wonderful discussion. I get chills just thinking about it. So
it's funny you should mention, because one of the things that really sit heavily, clearly as a Black woman, one of the things that sit really heavily on my heart is the color of the industry, the legalized industry, and the absence of people of color, and so that would be a wonderful discussion that I would love to have.
Absolutely.
Two subjects.
Absolutely. And we can talk about sexism in the industry as well.
Exactly. And then there's that.
The doozy. Yeah, there's certainly an old boys club happening, old white boys club happening within cannabis that we all need to break down. So that's been a big part of my journey and my messaging from the platform I do have is to make more room for women and people of color. And also as women and people of color, we need to raise our voices. So
absolutely. Ooh, that's wonderful.
Woo, I know.
You're definitely coming back.
Yes, please.
Please. But this, I'm so grateful that you responded to my cry and that you made yourself available for this conversation, and that you brought such a broad wealth of information about all that is all that the cannabis actually does entail. Oh, one of the standard questions that I forgot to ask. What do you call it? Do you call it cannabis? Do you call it marijuana? Do you call it weed or pot? What is your name?
Always cannabis.
Okay.
When you dig into it, I haven't said marijuana in forever. When you dig into it, marijuana has a very racialized past.
Uh,
So as an industry, we all have moved to cannabis. It's very rare that you actually see marijuana. When I'm with my friends or whatever, I'll be like, yeah, I want to smoke some pot, I want to smoke some weed, but like professionally, it's always cannabis.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Um, and how can people get in touch with you? How can people read what you write through CannaWrite?
Sure. Yeah.
What are your contact and of course, we'll leave that in the description section
Sure.
below, but also share how people can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. So my website is cannawrite.net. So it's CANNAWRITE.net. And my most active social platform is Instagram. So my handle is @cannawrite. So yeah, and that's where I speak about a lot of issues that we just spoke about the social issues in cannabis. So that's my platform. So yeah, so I'd love everybody to check me out and give me a follow, and I'll follow back. And yeah.
Wonderful. So I'll make sure to keep that in the description below, and I look forward to being able to talk again and touch on the things that you just mentioned, the social aspect of cannabis and also the terpenes. And for now, we're going to part, but thank you so much for coming to Cannabis Chronicles. Thank you so much for sharing your heart and your wisdom and your expertise in this industry. And thank you for opening my eyes to even personally understanding the true weight of looking for something that is full spectrum in my effort to find what actually relieves the pain in my knees.
Absolutely. And I hope you have a wonderful journey. It's a beautiful plant to explore. So
absolutely.
Yes.
I'm going to hang on one sec. I'm going to pause the recording so that you and I can talk for a sec. Okay. Well, there you have it, folks. Wasn't that amazing? Thank you so much to Anne-Marie Fischer. Thank you so much for paying attention and for following along with us as we explored a multitude of different subjects in regards to cannabis and legalization. Looking forward to discussions in the future about women in the industry since legalization, people of color. Clearly, both subjects are very near and dear to my heart. And then even understanding the terpenes and what they mean in connection with the CBD and also the THC. Understanding the cannabinoid system is fundamental. And one of the things that I'm stepping into this world and realizing is just how much I don't know and how much I need to know in order to properly make an informed decision about my health. So I invite you to join us next time for our next Cannabis Chronicles. And we will definitely be having Anne-Marie back. Be sure to look in the description below, and I'll make sure that her information is in there, as well as her website and these things, so you can follow her as well and get in touch. And make sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell so that you'll know when we are going to be doing another one of these. But for now, they will be every Wednesday. A new episode will upload with a new conversation that with somebody who will bring a little more depth and a little more understanding about what is actually happening and what we need to know in order to maximize our health and to make wise and informed decisions about our health For now, I think that's it. Thank you so much for joining. You have yourself a wonderful day. And remember, you are loved and you are greatly, greatly appreciated. Bye now.